Okay, so Lester and Rick are going to talk to you this morning about a successful online business. Anyone in here not going to have an online component for their business? Yeah, so I think everyone is operating online in some way, shape or form, certainly this year, but also I think an incredible opportunity to learn about operating or setting up online businesses, certainly for the future if this is it. So I will leave.
Yep, cool. Okay, so Richard and I, why do we do this together? Because we're Westlakers. How's that? Isn't that scary?
Blood brothers.
We work together.
He's green, I'm red.
Same year at school. So, just fast forward 40 years, and this could be really scary, eh? Anyway, in ABC is a business broking firm, and we sell businesses, we help people buy businesses. I get a lot of the online work. Rick is also involved in that area, that's why we're both here. Online businesses are incredibly popular, and let's just go through it and work out why they're popular and what. This is going to be a bit of a higher level discussion, but it's going to give you a bit of an idea of what we look at when we're looking at online businesses. So ABC, a little bit about what we do. So the fun part here is that we sell around 400 businesses a year. A growing percentage of those are online businesses. We've been around for a long time. We've got 75 of us nationwide. We've got our own in-house legal team. So it's a very cool setup business. Richard and I call Richard because that's his professional name.
Not my stage name.
Not the stage name. But it's very much a hands-on business. I sit here, the owner of the company sits there, so it's all very accessible and it's a very cool working environment. So why set up an online business? That's where we'll start. So do you want to set it up because it's a side hustle? Something for you to make some coin out of? Something that you can operate from home, and basically it allows you to have no staff. You can make money 24/7 because it's online. What could possibly go wrong? So I'm going to let Rick here.
And look, I think one of the key things about all of this that we want to impress upon you today, and I know some of you are already doing it, but the key thing is everything you do, when you start with that blank sheet of paper to start with, what you're trying to think about, and the reason we're here today, is because you want to sell it one day. Okay, you want it to be incredibly successful. So what we're going to talk to you about is ways you can add value. What are some of the features and the aspects of the business that you can set up now that are going to add value? So every day, everything you do should be aimed at selling that business, whether it's this one in school or something you do once you get out of school.
So we'll do a quick SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So your strengths. Once the hard work of setting up the e-commerce Shopify website is done, it should be easy to run. Now that is easy to say. I've got some examples later on which I'll talk you through, and we're going to show you what the business earned, what the business paid the owner, and what we sold it for. And I'm going to talk you through some of those examples so you can see real world examples of what's actually happening. Strength is not usually a full-time commitment until you grow, and so a lot of online businesses, the owners are the people who are doing the picking and packing and freighting, this sort of stuff. It's very light on overheads. At the moment, businesses that are not that popular but are still saleable, they've got two words in them: retail and lease. Not too many people are looking towards owning a business where they've got to take on premises because they don't know what the economy is going to be doing. However, with an online business that is totally controllable, AdWords are your friends. So most online businesses put all their investing into advertising, AdWords, that sort of stuff.
Just picking up on that, the other thing is SEM, search engine marketing. So a lot of you, it's about being able to target and retarget your customers. The whole Amazon concept of some other people also like this is the type of thing you're wanting to be getting involved in. And technology, remember, does a lot of the work of staff. One of the things is if you've got Shopify, as Lester said, if you can keep the staff numbers down, that's the great thing that makes it entirely saleable.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, a couple of the weaknesses here. Traditionally, an online business is dependent on very smart, clever product selection to be successful. That is cool. it creates a niche, it also creates a weakness. Richard, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about it before. It's one of those things where, and we've been bouncing it between the boys, is one of the great things about a very focused product, which gives you, when you hit into a rich vein of an audience, it might be in the skate area, or I don't know, it could be anything, fishing, anything that you're doing. But you've found a really interesting area. Now the problem with that, it's tight and it's focused, and as Lester says, it's quite niche. Now that's also what they say is a bit of an albatross around your neck. That also limits you to only being in that space and only being thought about like that. So the trick is to find a situation where you can build a site that has a series of those different focus things that are relevant. Okay, there's a site that's overseas that's all about outdoors. It started in just hard plastic, protective clothing, right? But now it's gone off into all sorts of things. New Zealand's Allbirds are on there and so on. So you want to start with a focus, but then widen it out after that.
So a typical thing that happens is I would only be able to sell 1 in every 4 online businesses that cross my desk, because when I do the homework in them, there's not enough value there for them to sell. And a lot of it, to be honest, is that people get bored and they want to sell within 18 months of setting up, which is not a long history for an online business, but they don't want to do all the work. Okay, so I could give you examples of that, but I'll perhaps wait till a little bit later.
So what should they do? Should they have traded longer, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody dreams of having a great online business where they're going to rake in the money 24/7, go out there, hit it hard. Setting up a business takes a long time. Getting it established takes longer. If you get bored too soon, somebody else is going to earn the benefit of your hard work that you're missing out on. So if after 24 months it's not making enough for you, or you're getting bored, you could be starting to think, okay, but however, it's actually still making some money. People pull out too soon. They don't recognise the opportunity that they've created there. If you start with a lemon, it ain't going to turn into something fabulous, okay? But if it's got traction, but from personal circumstance you don't want to run it, wrong attitude, you've got to give it legs before it can make money. So pulling out too soon is not a cool thing. Opportunities, expansion is the obvious one. And so everybody dreams of making a site where it can go boom internationally, and I'll give you, I've got a client who I've sold 4 online businesses, ELU. She's a bit of an icon in what she has set up, and I'll go over some of those businesses and show you how she set them up and made the money that she did. If you can't get it right in New Zealand, it's not necessarily going to work right overseas. Okay, so a lot of people want to go global straight away, but actually you've got to test the market. If the people in your backyard aren't buying the business, aren't buying what you're selling, what's going on? What are the reasons? And so expansion is awesome, but just be mindful that you've got to make it work here. Okay.
One other quick thought is a thing called lifetime customer value, LCV, right? Think about if I'm buying a product off you guys, right? It's not this transaction, it's not the next transaction, it's what's my lifetime value, right? So if you're trying to get me to buy 3 products a year, that might be worth $500. Well, you want to be getting me to do that for 10 years, that's $5,000, okay? So every customer is a precious asset, and you want to be trying to get them to lock into your brand and stay with you for a long period of time. The other thing is collaborating with other sites. Don't be afraid to put, Allbirds, for instance, have their own site, but they're on sites all over the world where other people are selling their product for them. So again, think about collaboration.
Yeah. So one business I sold called the Beauty Lounge, he had 1,200 products to sell. They're called SKUs, 1,200 SKUs. He sat at his barbecue table at home and just watched it all happening, because his system was it took 2 years to build his website, and he's a website guru. It was so automated that people would order, it would go directly to them from a third-party logistics, 3PL company. after the order was delivered, they would automatically get an email, hi, hope you're happy with your product. A month later, they would get, hey, here's the next promotion. So his repeat client in beauty products was massive, all right, because it's high volume, small cost, but the repeat client was phenomenal. But his systems were so automated that it was amazing.
See that interaction with your customer. That's where you get lifetime value.
So threats, consumer behaviour, and I've put consumer behaviour, but that could also be a good thing. Online businesses went ape in lockdown. Why? Because everyone's sitting there, what do we do now? Oh, we can go shopping. So consumer behaviour can also be an opportunity, but it's also a threat because you're supplying the newest best thing. What is the obsolescence of that newest best thing? I mean, you have got competition. You have created an online business around a product that is the best thing ever, and it's proving to be popular. But you've got somebody who's potentially sitting in a suburb away from you onto the next thing after that. So be very aware around product obsolescence and what Richard was saying around having other strings to your bow. That covers the other players in the market. And you've got to be very careful here. So if you unwittingly create a business around a product that you don't have exclusivity around, that is very dangerous. So you've got to watch your supply contracts and that you have exclusivity of what you're supplying. All right, that's most important. So how do we value an online business? So what does the business earn for the working owner? So irrespective of any business actually, online or general hospitality, most businesses are valued with what's called the return to the working owner. And so if somebody's going to buy a business and I'm buying it off you, I want to know how much you're earning. Okay? So there are 3 questions that always get asked. What have I got to know to run the business? What have I got to do to run the business? So what have I got to know? You've got to know what the products are. You've got to know the history of them. What have I got to do? Most online, you've got to do your marketing. You've got to do pick and packing, that sort of stuff. And what am I going to earn? And what am I going to earn determines the value of your business. So we calculate the value is based on a multiple of what the person earns. And I'll get Richard to talk to you about...
You keep going, mate. You're on fire.
Okay. So a multiple is applied to what a working owner earns. So to give an example of a multiplier, if a hairdresser had a retail premise and she had, upset she, presumption there.
And you talk about here or?
And she had, say, 3 chairs. Don't. That person may well earn, we'll call it 100,000 just for the sake of the exercise. The multiplier applied to that situation where the person's name is on the door is about a 1.1 to 1.2 multiplier. So if the person's earning 100,000, the multiplier relevant to that would be 120,000. We'll call it a 1.2 multiplier. And so the value of the business is 120,000. All right? If that same example, the person was a hairdresser, she had 15 chairs. She didn't work in the business, but she overviewed, managed, employed, did the paying. That multiplier would go up to 2.5 because she is not working in the business, she's working on the business. So that business goes from 100,000 to 250, same type of business, different application. And that is the power of a multiplier. Okay? Multipliers are quite good to understand. It's a good thing to do. A lot of online businesses have a higher multiplier because there are no retail premises involved, there are no leases involved, and quite often there's no staff involved. You can contract other people to do the picking and packing, but those are 3 key things, especially the staff. I've got one business that we are selling at the moment, husband and wife team. They have limited the growth of the business because they didn't want to employ staff. They just wanted to keep it themselves. But that's okay because they're earning $500,000 a year and it's an online business. They don't sell one product, they sell 3. They've got 3 websites. All the back ends go into the same shopping cart. Very sophisticated, been in operation for 10 years. They haven't dipped their toes and jumped. They've dipped their toes and gripped. And I tell you, earning 500,000 a year, when you're doing, incidentally, 5 hours a day, Monday to Friday. That's cool.
And that's all based on those principles that Lester started with.
Okay, so these, let's jump out of skew. Anyway, so these are examples of online business sales that I've done, okay? So I'll go through what these are associated with. So this is the turnover that this person did. She was a mum in Tauranga. Pulled out 72,000, that's what she earned. That's what we sold it for, and that was the multiplier. What did this business do? She made cookies at home called Hello Cookie. She made specific cookies and she put a stamp in there. And the stamps that she used were quite quirky. Happy birthday, bitch. Cool stuff. It was just funky and it took off.
That was actually what it was.
And it was really good. A lot of other stuff that I can't really tell you, but people like sending that sort of stuff out. And it was cool. Okay. This business here, this was one of ELU's businesses. And that's what it earned. That's what we sold it. And that was the multiplier. The one person bought both these businesses. He's a cool dude, and he's got 140 staff. He absorbed that into his operation. The economies of scale meant that he didn't have to employ other staff. And he's made them both grow significantly. This business was the beauty one I was talking to you about. The guy operated by himself. This was his turnover, 1.8 million. That's what he was earning himself for doing sod all, 255,000. That's what we sold it for, 935, 3.66. That is a hefty multiplier. You multiply that by that and you get that. And that is the benefit of having a business where you don't need to work in it too much, all right? Ask yourself a question. Would you want to buy a business where you're working 50 or 60 hours a week? Now, if you're outside looking in, you think, okay, no, that's too much. And if the guy who's selling that business is doing that, I don't have a hope of understanding very quickly how to run that business. Whereas an online business, if it's a part-timer and you're doing all the work in it, bing bang, it's all cool. So those are examples, yeah.
So is the multiplier just how many years it takes to pay back at that rate?
No, the multiplier is what the person earns. We'll use this one as an example.
Is that per year?
So that's per year.
Okay.
So yeah, good question. Thank you for asking. So you can never assume. So all these are what they earn per annum, per year in the business. So this one had only been going between 18, 20 months, but working mum, trying to, look after the family. It grew beyond her ability to run it, to be honest. So 72,000 was what she earned in a year, and we applied a good multiplier, and that's what it sold for.
Okay.
I mean, what you're saying is it's a broad brush, just to be able to say that.
Yeah.
But what happens is if you're growing in between, it's shorter than that, you see.
Yeah.
So it does shorten up, but yeah.
Thanks.
What if you have like more capital in the business, so you have more equipment? Would that determine how much your business is also worth?
Yeah, different ways of applying it. Is there a volume?
Yeah, we'll come on to that. That's obviously. You'll like this one, boys.
Why is that?
Because Lester's in it, see?
Oh, sweet.
See, that's outstanding.
Work with you fellas.
Yeah, well, let's
I had businesses Waist Trainer, Lux Fitness, Celebration Box, and Baby Boutique, which I've all sold through ABC. What I love the most about being an entrepreneur is it's so challenging and rewarding, and I love the freedom and flexibility. Being a business owner can also be very stressful at times. So in order to keep a good work-life balance, I just try to keep very, very organized. To stay on top of things, I think you just have to love it. I think you have to love being a business owner and just love working all the time, and it can't feel like work. Lister has made all of my business sales so easy. He's found me buyers within a week. There have been times where I haven't seen eye to eye with the buyer, and Lister's really helped by being that middleman and really just making it work for both parties. Every time I sell a business, I just feel very excited and very content. I would highly recommend going through ABC and Lister if you are looking at selling a business. He's made every single one of my business sales super easy, very straightforward, and he's found me buyers very quickly.
Okay. Where's the bucket? Richard. Okay, so that's basically it. So Iea, I've sold 4 of her businesses. She agrees that setting up a good online business is not easy. And so she's had the tendency to go full on, make it explode, and then jump out. She now knows that she's got to go full on and hold, because the next venture takes more time to wind up to get the same return. And so that's, that was her experience there.
We just come back to that question about assets, if there's something with a big asset,
Yeah.
which is different to online, but yeah.
For sure. So online businesses don't usually have a lot of assets. That's your asset. In general sales, it's a different story. But online businesses don't have a lot of assets. That business where the guy's pulling out 500K, he and his wife are pulling out 500K, they have 200 square meters of premises that they store their stuff. Okay, so in those storage facilities, he's got racking systems, and so the racking system is the expense there, and we are selling that with around a $50,000 asset value. The asset value in a multiplier earnings are not taken into account separately. So if he's got his car involved in there, something like that, we pull all that out and we work out just what it takes to run the business. So it'll be a computer. Nobody wants to buy somebody's old computer, so it'll just be software that you flick over to your own. Those racks are really, really important because that's the system. And to be honest, that's pretty much it. He's also got scales for freight, bits and bobs, but there's not usually a lot of assets in an online sale.
And that's quite small compared to other ones we might deal with.
Yeah.
We can be with people who've got $500,000. If you've got a trucking firm, your trucks are worth $500,000 more each.
Yeah.
So you might have $5 million worth of stock in terms of assets. Sorry.
Tangibles, yeah.
We call them tangible assets rather than intangibles, which is goodwill.
Yeah, so it's a different calculation. Certainly, if you're selling a trucking firm, it's about the cost of the truck. That's what you're buying.
So can there be changing the percentage by 20, 20 points?
In an online business, the assets aren't taken into account. There's no percentage taken into account.
But just in general, for other businesses, not online.
You take them into account. Over the weekend, I did 2 appraisals for landscaping firms. One of them had 210K worth of assets because he employed 30 people and he had a lot of vehicles in that with landscaping. He got a lot of stuff. I didn't account for that because it's still worth a shed load because of what he's dropping out.
So it's inside the multiple.
Yeah, it's inside the multiple. But yes, you do. Somebody's going to look at that and think, yeah, whatever. Any other questions on that?
What don't you sell?
What don't we sell? We don't sell hospitality. We don't sell cafes and restaurants. ABC sells everything. But Richard and I focus on the general side, so the business broking company is split into hospitality and general. Richard and I are in the general side of it, so we touch pretty much everything else other than cafes and hospitality.
And why is that?
Because they have a specific methodology that they use. Usually the brokers that are involved in hospitality are from that industry, so they can talk to people on that basis.
That's where your contacts are. Right. Yeah. Well, we've sold everything across the board. I had one the other day, the old joke about kitchen sinks. I got down to selling kitchen sinks the other day.
Alright.
That's how far we've gone. So we've sold a lot of food. That's another very hot category as well.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, guys. Very cool. Pleased there are no questions.
How's that?
All good?
Have we finished too early?
No? No? Are there any more questions on that?
There might be later.
We've got a
That's
couple
fine.
of gurus in the room. Use the time. Any other... What about just anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Think of this as kind of a mentoring session,
What's
so you can
the-
ask anything.
What's the best way to grow an online business?
Well, all your expense has to be in who you're marketing, and you've got to be very clever about your AdWords and who your target market is. So you have a determination of who your target is, and then you've got to use either clever people who might be your mates here, or you've got to use a company that's going to give you some advice around how to target those people and get them done. So I mean, that business where mum and dad were pulling out 500, they spent 80,000 a year on AdWords.
And all the online businesses we work with have a serious, online investment.
Yeah, because
AdWords investment.
yeah, because I mean, because there's no retail presence, somebody's not going to walk past their computer and suddenly say, "Ooh, look at that! I want to get there." So you've got to go out there and chuck it in someone's face, and that's
Got to be their feeds.
that's the best way of doing
So
it.
you can like potentially hire an advertising firm.
Yeah, but don't think of it as an advertising firm. The most common would be, 2 or 3 people businesses that do digital marketing.
Right. And try and get freelance people. That's the thing. You just want freelancers. Try not to, again, like you're trying not to put staff on board, don't try and put companies on board to help you. Try and get freelance. At your stage now, be asking. Like sessions like this is your chance just to suck brain matter out of people and beg, borrow and steal. Everyone's happy to be asked. So yeah, think of it first.
So do they outsource for marketing usually for these online businesses, or do they usually run that themselves?
Well, they may have someone internally. Often you'll have a family member who'll do it. We've had a couple of businesses where family members have done it internally, or again, as I say, sort of a freelancer contractor who you get, who's a low cost, hourly cost. You don't employ people. Otherwise, they're sitting there waiting for you to brief them, right? So you just want to be going in and borrowing someone's brains for 3 hours a week. That's the best way to pay them.
Yeah. I mean, the Kiwi thing is you're going to give it a crack yourself, eh? That's how we start up. And then what's even worse than that is you employ somebody to do it, and then you get all their advice, and then try and do it yourself again anyway. So that's the nature of it. But if it's paying dividends, and they're going to give you equations as to what you're spending versus what the inquiry level is, that's why people spend a shed load that they do.
And that's what a buyer coming in is looking for, that those systems are established, that they're happening, and this is a good line in there. It's like you're getting paid while you're asleep. It's called the Swiss method, sales while I'm sound asleep. That stuff is going, someone's online paying you while you're asleep. So all that system in the back end of a lot of those very successful ones was all automated.
Okay.
It won't happen to start with, but you build that over time.
All those successful businesses, what did they all have in common?
Good
Well,
question.
I think EA has said it pretty clearly. You've got to be passionate about business.
Yeah.
You've got to. The trick is with a business owner versus an employer versus an employee. The employee, once they leave, they think about the weekend and what they're doing. Employer is going to do the same, but it's in their heads 24/7. You've got to be fizzing. You've really got to be driven. And this is all you think about. This is what you dream about, and that gives you the edge. And if people say, "Oh, can't you come out? Can't we do stuff?" Well, actually, just give me 5 minutes.
I'm doing orders.
You're doing stuff.
Remember, the best word of all is curious. It's the best thing you can be. Be curious. And when we work on things, we find, when I was in the marketing side, you'd find fragments from things you've been on. Like when I meet with Will and Jackson, there's little fragments we were talking about, and you pull them together and they start to make sense. They fall into place like a jigsaw that you can't make out when it's all just pieces on the table, and it starts to fall into place. But get online, look at everybody else's things, look at sites overseas, look at sites locally, look out of the category that you're in. We've just talked about beauty. Beauty's a very bloody competitive area, and so they've got to be really sharp. So you guys may not be into makeup, but there's millions and billions of dollars spent on it. So get over into categories that are quite heavy, and what can you learn and pull back into your own category, whatever it is. So curiosity is the key thing.
Yeah.
Find fragments to put together.
That specific operator with the beauty lounge, he was so pedantic about every image that he took, and he had 1,200 items. He made them perfect. He was a copywriter. He made the words perfect. Everything was just really, really top shelf. And for him, that was important. And it looked better than just grabbing a product shot, which is too small file size wise and sort of blistering apart a wee bit. You know, that's rubbish. It's got to be as best as you can make it.
Then do you see on the business, how did he make it automated? Like, was it similar to like, I don't know, like drop shipping where he didn't own the products himself, he just took it from a third party?
Yeah, so I mean, we're just discussing about 3PL and drop shipping. All his products, he paid a premium to have all his products out in a warehouse out in the airport, and they are a professional 3PL firm, and they fulfilled the orders. They did the fulfillment out there, kept in touch with him so that he knew what was going, and he could follow it all through his software anyway and see what was going on, and that's how that 3PL was managed.
So and that whole system, when one sells, it puts I need another one in a stack over here, and then when they've got enough of them to make an order, it sends that automatic order off to the other people.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we're talking about, we're talking about online, is that great system where he said, I hope you like the order. I hope we're satisfied with what you got. Here's the next opportunity, or here's another one. Here's a follow-up. You must almost be out of that product by now. Here's that, and that's all automation. It's very simple. There's online products you can get to do that. But you can think as an experience as a person who's getting it, you're going, geez, that's great. He's thinking that it's almost must have run out on a normal usage pattern. They're prompting me, and they might give you an incentive of 20% off or something to do it. So all of that is just living in your consumer's shoes and knowing how you'd like to be treated, and then getting technology to do it.
Yeah. So he had a product that was wearing out, whereas if you're selling something that is a baseball cap, chances are it won't wear out in 3 months. You might lose it, but you don't want to be receiving notification of, how's it going? Well, I've already got it, that's all.
That's got to be appropriate.
Yeah.
You said earlier like 3PL, like
Sorry, no, keep going.
Okay,
We'll get there.
what is like the 3PL? Like 3PL.
Third-party logistics.
Oh, okay.
So third-party logistics is where you own the products, but you don't want to be doing all the packing and freighting. So you give all your products to somebody else. It sits in their warehouse, and you tell them, I'm going to send my orders directly to you. You fulfill them, and that's the term, fulfillment. And then they clip the ticket on how much they process and work for you. So they charge you according to what you're selling and the storage of what you've created, and that is based on how many pallets are filling their warehouse,
And it will always be cheaper than doing it yourself.
time-wise.
I think Namdi had a question and then
So
Thomas.
what would you guys say is like when the best marketing strategy you've seen used online in the last 5 years?
Sorry, I can't quite hear. Mask down, I can't hear.
The best marketing strategy you've seen
Yep.
used for online businesses in the
Yeah.
last 5 years?
Okay, so EA started out by using an influencer. Influencers rocketed her. She paid a shed load, we're talking hundreds of thousands, to pay an influencer in LA to promote her waist trainer product. And that went boom, because that influencer's followers were in the millions. And so what she did is she just looked up influencers and how many people are following. Okay, ooh, that's a lot. Yeah, let's try that. Ding, and got in touch that way. And she's bold as brass. She's really cool. Hey, look, got this product. What would be the cost? And they are so used to a formulation around what's happening there that her use of an influencer early on, this is 2017, was fairly early on in the process of using influencers. And so that propelled her massively. And then she just used others and used others locally. And so that was a big plus for her. So it is relative to your product and relative to who you know and what your budget is. At this stage, if the budget ain't there, you could do contras, whatever, product for, promotion.
Ask a favour, would you do it for me for nothing to get started?
Yeah.
Just be brave, be bold.
And so you know, we can't help but be influenced by who we see, which is cool. It's a thing of recognition. At my tender age, I think, yeah, what a load of. But, you know, I may not be in the market for what you're selling, so that's fine. But somebody else might be, so that's cool.
So if that's what products, what's like the best one you'd say for services?
So
Best
from
Services online. Like what would be the
best product.
No, like marketing strategy. What is the best for services? If you're doing like an online business, selling your service.
What's the best marketing strategy
For a service that you're selling online.
for a service? Give me the service.
For example, maybe you're selling like marketing strategies. This is bad, but marketing strategies to musicians or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
No marketing.
No,
So then how are you going to find product?
because that would be a tough sale online. Musicians have no money, and so that's going to be a tough sale. So yeah, it is relative to the product. I'm not trying to take the edge off here, but I know what's going to work and what's not, and I think promoting to that sort of service is going to be a hard ask. You're not going to make the numbers that we were talking about here. So how would you promote that? Obviously, you'd promote it through musicians, and you'd use musicians that you can get hold of to create more influence around that. But it is a tough ask. Yeah.
Someone else have it?
Good question, Thomas.
When it comes to a 3PL, do you have to use their warehouse to store products? Let's say you have a perishable product, can you just use them as a shipping service instead?
Not really.
Just use a courier
because they make their money. I mean, that's just storage you're talking about. So who's going to do the picking and packing?
And because it's a fragile product, you've only got limited time, so you want everything in the shortest time possible in the chilled or frozen chain, supply chain. So you generally tend to do that. I mean, you've got people picking in minus 20 degrees for frozen. Yeah, it's a very specialist area. So you can't be trucking things around and then, having to go somewhere else. Best to keep it all in container. And those sorts of supply chains, in chilled or frozen, are expensive because of the cost of the assets involved in doing it. It's a very expensive chain.
Yeah.
When we talk about how you start off with a niche market and move into more developed markets, or a niche idea, how do you market in particular to that niche market and not generally, so you can put the most efficiency into that group?
Sure. Well, you've got a really niche product, and you've got a contract that you're the only supplier for that product.
Okay.
So then you've got to work out and put a circle around who your target audience are, what the demographic is, male, female, what age, what do they do, where are their influences, and then you've got to market. The best way to do it is just AdWords around that group.
Right,
And
so figure out where they're looking. And then
you've got to figure out where they're looking and who and what their influences are. That's really, really important, because that will allow you to target as opposed to just mud on the wall.
Okay.
The other thing is that when you're starting out for you guys, it's probably Insta and Facebook is your easiest way, because it's far lower cost to start with. But once you start getting going, AdWords is, you can kick in with those. And they're all, you can do anything. You can geolocate with those and whatever you need to do. But certainly, you might find this. You might have an audience in South Auckland, and that's who you target. It might be the Bays where there's some money, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Any more questions?
What's the biggest business you've sold?
Outside of online? Well, this so
you're big online.
yeah. So this one with mum and dad, that's up for 2.4 million.
So that's the biggest?
No, sold a computer IT company for 3.6.
Is that it?
We are okay. I'll wrap you up, brother. 12 million. We're working on it.
So it's not done.
Sorry.
So you haven't sold it?
Sitting in front of the owner doing an appraisal. That's the game.
So like the company sold, with a couple of guys, there's businesses up to 50 million that get sold regularly, but New Zealand's a smallish market. So most, 80% of the businesses in New Zealand are under 5 people. So they're not big businesses. So big ones are rare.
So
we've had an example of doing
So is ABC for more smaller businesses then?
Well, it's relative to the size of the business. So we can cater from basically our sweet spot is around 1.5 million. But you know, we cater for up to 30, 50 million. We're not in the 30 to 100 million category. That's more Deloitte's.
The large accountancy firms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And PwC, that sort of thing.
What sort of demographic buy the businesses?
At that level, up that high. You're going way off topic, brother, but anyway. Keep your
I just want to know.
Yeah, I know. So they're usually offshore, part of, absorbed by bigger brothers, bigger fish, predominantly in Australia. They see the opportunity and...
So they're in the same market buying off the
Yeah,
competitors?
it's an acquisition.
Rolling up.
Yeah,
Roll up.
it's an acquisition from one, you know, you think it's a big fish here, then suddenly boom, a bigger fish takes it.
So that's a vertical, and then the other way you get is horizontal, where someone says, look, I'm a landscaper, and I'm going to buy a pool company, or a pool manufacturing company, then I'm going to buy a pool installation company, then I'm going to buy a pool servicing company, because we will always do the landscaping and fences around the outside. I might buy a fence company as well. Okay, so that's a horizontal, where you're taking more of that market, versus a vertical, doing a whole lot more of the same in one market.
How many businesses would you sell a year? Like what? I know there's lots and lots and lots of small businesses here, but what's the turnover, and how long does a deal take? Is it months and months and months to get people across the line?
So ABC sell about 400 a year, and it takes on average 3 to 4 months to sell a business. It's very important that in this environment, in this lockdown environment, what is tending to happen is that purchasers, maybe a few years ago, they would have looked at a business, have their handle on it about 85%, and then gone, yep, we'll give it a crack because I back myself. Now what they're doing is they're going, yep, but I'm going to get professional advisors to confirm what I'm thinking. And professional advisors in the forms of accountants and lawyers are cautious by nature, because they don't want to be the one who's saying, oh yeah, go for it, you know. So they by nature are going,
You've never heard the accountant say that's a great buy.
Yeah.
Their job is to show the three red flags.
A buyer's accountant and a vendor, seller's accountant, is usually a 30 to 35% variation in the value.
Okay.
And that's where we come in to help bring those two down to 5 or 10%.
So have you seen your market grow, whereas, you know, these sales might have been done sort of, you know, off the book, not off the books, but, you know, in a more private, is there now, with the market the way it is, a growth for you guys?
ABC had the best year ever.
Okay.
The 21-22 year is the best year ever. And that's because vendors are a little bit anxious in the situation, and so they're wanting to test the water. And usually when a vendor comes to talk to us, they've already made the decision, listen, we're going to sell. Because if they're a baby boomer, they want to look at the next 5 years and think, you know, holy Toledo, that man, what's that about? And so they come to us, we do an appraisal for them, we create a window of where we see what the market is going to give them based on multipliers. And they go, my business is worth a lot more than that. Okay, well, let's see. You know, so I had one online business. I can't talk about it because it's still happening. But I did a taste test on a monthly email that I sent out on my database, and Richard's database is full of online buyers. I sent a monthly newsletter out and say, hey guys, I've got this coming up.
Just put a teaser at the bottom of it.
Hot as, got 20 replies for further information. All of them said business is too expensive. They can't work out where the numbers are coming from. And so you give that feedback back to the vendor, and he's pulled the plug.
Okay.
Because their expectation or their need is greater than the value.
It's like selling a house in a way, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Funny, eh?
One of the hard things with the business is a lot of at the moment, you know, you might have a business, I've had a couple of people withdraw because they're making $1 million a year. And they're going, well, look, you know, it's going so well, even if you paid me 5 or 6 million for it, what am I going to do? You know, where's my cash going to come? So I'll have a big asset, a big cash dollop that I'll put in another asset, but where am I going to get that sort of money every day? So that's a little bit less. There's also a lot of people our age, baby boomers, who are coming up at the end of their 30 years, now are starting to mature into wanting to move on, as Lester said.
Okay, cool. Any other questions?
I have one last question.
Oh, good man, yes.
Bonus solver.
One last question.
Commercial offer.
Start at 10.
You said
Pretty
you
good.
base selling companies on the amount of money that each person makes. What if they're getting more cash flow, but they're leveraging their money, like paying off their debts, you know?
Yeah, it
But still,
for sure, for sure. So it comes down to why is a vendor going to sell? You know, so if you're making $1 million a year, why sell? It could be a health issue. You could be getting a divorce. There are all sorts of circumstances
We've
that
got all that going on at the moment.
we don't know
Yeah.
what is going on. And so when somebody comes to sell their business, we work out what the owner and the owner only is making, because if I buy the business, I've got to step into your shoes, and then we base that on that multiplier. And so it's not about how the money's being used or what that person is doing with his money, because to be honest, I don't care.
Yeah.
If I buy that business, my expectation is that this is what I'm going to earn. And that multiplier has to make sense, because a
So
buyer's...
it's based on the last cent into the owner's account, sort of.
Sorry, it's going...
So like, what I mean with cash flow is like, what if the company's making 5 million
Yep.
and it's going all back into the business, but it's not going into the owner's pocket?
Sure.
So how would you determine the value there?
Yeah, okay, so if the net profit is $5 million,
Yeah.
from a business broking point of view, that's what the owner can pull out.
Whether
How
it's
they-
being reinvested or otherwise.
Yeah, how they use that money is not my concern.
All right, yeah,
And so if it is pulling out 5 million, it's worth a shed load.
yeah.
The multiplier goes stupid. We're getting up to 10 times there.
Do you have a
Right.
question?
How does ABC get their money? Is it sort of like a percentage of the sale? 'Cause
We rape and pillage as much as we can, but generally it's around 9%.
Completely shameless, we make no apology. So it's quite a difference between real estate selling and for instance, our
9% is
business,
quite a bit.
you might sell a house in 3 or 4 weeks. We sell in 3 or 4 months. Sell a house, you have to understand the caveats around it, but we've got to go through we go through about 40 different things to understand what, you know, the nature of the business, the assets, the stock list, the lease, the staffing, contracts, all that sort of
So
stuff.
generally, if you've got a residential property, it's going to sell. Some businesses are non-saleable, but we're still going to go through the process. Last one.
Very last.
Do the banks lend for
So,
business purposes?
Hang on. Whoa. Dan's just asking a question. What we'll do is we'll call it after Dan's question, and if you've got more questions, I'm
Yeah,
sure they might be around for a
yeah.
couple of minutes. We'll go there, okay?
Do the banks lend for business purchase?
Good question. This guy needs a gold hippo stamp. The banks at the moment are really, really tight on business lending. It's a pain, and their overview is where the economy is currently sitting. And so their influences are what's happening for first-time home lenders at the moment, which is a law that's been brought in by this government called the CCCFA, which is penalising first home owners. It's getting them to the fresh graduates in the banks are reviewing all expenses that young couples are having to buy a house. And it's penalising and it's crippling first-time buyers' ability to invest. That is one influence from the bank. They are then looking at a business and thinking, okay, so if a buyer is going to use a house as leverage, as equity to invest in this business, that buyer has to go through that same list of frickin' requirements, CCCFA, from the bank, which is crazy.
Right.
Whereas typically, if the business is, say, $500,000,
Yep.
and I've got $250,000 in the bank, and I can supply 50% of the funding to buy that business, the bank will then look at what the business performs, and they see that the business earns $100,000. They will then say, okay, the business, it becomes a commercial transaction.
Okay.
And the banks will then say, okay, because the business is pulling out 100K, we will use that against the lending for the business. So it was all relative to how much cash the buyer's got. I sold a business 2019. It was 3.1 million. The guy had $10,000 in the bank. The rest was leveraged against properties. In today's environment, he couldn't afford it.
Interesting.
Nuts, eh?
I think the other thing to remember is, when if from the bank's perspective, if you can't pay your mortgage in a house, they get to take the house. If you can't pay the mortgage on a bank, on a business, there's not always as much to take. So their risk factor is far higher in a business than it is in real estate.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I learn a lot every time someone comes in. That was really, really interesting. Right, Nick, on our behalf.
Yeah, so on behalf of the boys here, we'd like to thank you for coming here today to present to us.
Thank you.
You've shown us that running an online business certainly does seem like an important part of, owning a business nowadays. And I'm sure the boys will look to use these learnings sometime in the near future for our own sake. So
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.